I want to take us back to 1970, when we had a 20-something Latina who was outspoken, to say the least, fearless, some may say naive, I go with fearless, who really kind of looked the establishment in the eye and gave them the middle finger. And because of that, really started Penny Lane. So I'm wondering, what was, take us back. What was it like when you started Penny Lane? Who were you? What did your day look like? What did Penny Lane look like? What did you think?
Another person that was here from the beginning is Mario de Valdia Jr. Mario. He was there with me in the very, very beginning. What was it like? I had a passion. I didn't want to be just a probation officer. I had a lot of political beliefs of changing the world, and the era of the 60s was very interesting, very progressive. I believe in love and peace, and that everything would be okay only if you worked hard enough. And when I got hired out of college by the probation department in their training program, and was trained very well, very properly. Only 22 people were selected, and I was one of the 22 that were selected.
And one of the only women.
Yeah.
And the only Latina.
Only Latina.
Yeah.
Yeah, only Latina
Significant.
woman. Yeah. And I was given a caseload of 50 girls to find what they used to call a suitable placement. I don't know whether they call it that now.
They still do.
And I had these 50 girls that were lovely. They were at juvenile hall, and most of them were runaways or incorrigible or sex delinquents. I remember we're talking early 70s. And it was really incredible to me that those kids would be locked up. The girls would be locked up because there was actually no place for them to go. I mean, there were no facilities for girls. And the ones that were available were locked facilities, which doesn't happen anymore, and completely substandard. So, I came out of the feminist movement as well, where women's rights and all of that, and I saw what was happening to those kids as a problem, that had also political implications, socio-political implications, something that I was always very interested in. So I decided I got to do something about that, and assembled some people together and worked very hard to begin, and our beginnings were extremely humble. Perhaps that's the reason why I'm still humble, because we had nothing when we started, but we had a big heart and a lot of love and a lot of passion. We wanted to do something different to change at least that piece of the world.
So your office was in the main facility?
Well, yeah, my office was in the main facility. Well, in the first place was Altadena, and we were there for a few months, and the roof literally caved in, and literally in a heavy rains, and we had to move, and we moved to where the main facility is now. And it was very lucky because we were able to get insurance money and some money to be able to move to a much nicer place. So yes, my office was in the main facility.
What was that like?
Well, the first thing was, and Mario and Peter will remember, that we were so proud. The Altadena place was really raggedy, ugly old place, raggedy. Although we had tried to paint it, it was all volunteer work. Nobody got paid. Initially, the only people that got paid were the maintenance people, the maintenance guy and the cook. Nobody else got paid. And so we moved from this raggedy old place to the main building, which looked much better. We moved with our 20, I think it was 22 girls. And we thought, oh my God, we reached heaven. We finally have a nice place. We can get more girls and we can get more money so that we can develop more programs. And what happened was incredible. The girls that we moved in with were extremely upset because they liked the raggedy old place because they had all of the staff attention. We moved to this bigger place, we had new kids, and they would have none of it. They really didn't like the new place because they had to share our love and attention with the new kids. And it was a very hard thing for us to understand because the staff were trying to do a good thing, and it turned out that you shouldn't have done this. We should have stayed in Altadena because now we have to deal with those other ugly, horrible girls. We're much better. So they even established a class system unbeknownst to us.
Some things don't change.
Some things don't change.
Yeah. So you mentioned that in the beginning there were a lot of volunteers that did not get paid but continued to come to work because they shared your passion. What you didn't mention was that most of those volunteers were family members.
Well, not most. Some were family members. A lot of them were friends of friends of friends, you know, with a little help of my friends, you know. I always relied on other people as I do today. You know, we do that, Wendy, you know. We have a lot of people that are friends of other people and other people and other people. We share a common interest, we share a vision, we share a passion, and we build, connect, and build. And we do that today, and the new executive team does it very well today. Hopefully, that is part of my legacy.
So if they were not blood related, they very quickly became family.
Well, the whole idea of family, very strong. You know, we come from Puerto Rico, and we come from a large family, a small town. We were slightly well-known, very cohesive, and we relied very much on family. So that model is so important. I mean, it is love that makes a family, not blood. But the model is a good one that I think we have adopted through the years and has worked for us. You know, I was just talking to different people today, and I'm talking about their families and their kids, and you know, you build and build and you connect, and that's what we all have to do.
So it wasn't always easy, to say the least, at Penny Lane. You mentioned some of the struggles with certainly the money and then actually getting staff that at some point wanted to be paid.
Yes.
What were some of the turning points? I mean, looking back, are there decisions or turning points that said, oh my gosh, we have finally arrived, or oh my gosh, I don't have to mortgage my house for the third time to make payroll? What were some of those things that happened along Penny Lane's history that really kind of brought us to where we are today?
One thing that happened that was one of the most horrific days of my life was at that time, we relied only on the board and carry money, and we relied on the checks that they would send for each kid. And the checks would come on the 16th or 17th. I think they still come on that date now. And one time, the checks didn't come, and we didn't have enough money to pay staff. And we didn't know where the checks were. And I had to assemble the staff and tell them, look, you know, we don't have money to pay you. And that was so hard to do. And you know what had happened? The checks had been delivered someplace else, about 3 blocks away. And after I finished with that comment, somebody came with a bag and said, the checks are here, the checks are here. And we were able to go to the bank, and people were paid. But those things were so hard for me when we didn't have any room for anything going wrong. We used to have this Christmas party, and some of you remember, I'm sure Eric does. We used to give, cheese and jelly as a gift for Christmas. Yeah, cheese and jellies. So, turning point, very, very difficult. In the 80s, a committee was formed because there was a real crisis in DCFS and probation because there were not enough facility to what they call the hard-to-place adolescent. So, of course, I was part of that committee. And we had a meeting. I think the meeting may have been at Penny Lane. And we were discussing some of the issues and what to do about this hard-to-place adolescent, of which we had at that time 59 adolescents. But they were placed with us. And there was this beautiful, handsome woman, very wise, chairing the meeting. And we're talking, and there's DCFS people, probation people, we're talking, and I'm describing some of the problems and diagnoses of my hard-to-place kids. And the woman kept looking at me. The meeting was over. Her name was Dr. Rose Jenkins, who was then director of Children's Services at the Department of Mental Health. And she followed me. I'm walking, and she's running after me. She followed me. And she said, "Who are you?" And what is Penny Lane? I've heard the name, but I don't know. And I was shocked with the kinds of kids that you were describing. And do they receive mental health support? And I said, no. She said, what? You don't? With that kind of kid, you don't? I said, no, we don't. And we started talking. We started a dialogue that influenced the fact that today, every residential setting, level 12 or more, has mental health support. It happened because of that moment and me talking to this wonderful lady who, although she was head of the DMH adolescent section, did not know our problems. So, that was a turning point because we were able to get a patch money over our rate. So we could breathe a little bit because we had a little bit of extra money to supplement our rate, which was very, very, very low. So, those are, the connections. Me being there, Dr. Rose Jenkins, unfortunately, she had cancer and died about 3 years later. But she was a tremendous mentor for Penny Lane. She really believed in us.
So there have been some dark days at Penny Lane. And we would be remiss to not reflect on some of those things and what we have learned. One of the darkest days that I can recall was in May of 1990, when we lost a boy to suicide at SAT 3. And that is something that is woven into our fabric. Can you tell us a little bit about that situation and
Yes, his name was David Alloway. And he is the only, am I right? I think I'm right. Residential kid that has died under our supervision in so many years, which is tragic, but it's not a bad record. He's the only one. Was very interesting. That afternoon, all the kids from SAT 3 had been at the clinic, and I saw David like I always did, and he was having they were having ice cream, and they left and they went home, and the house was full of people. The staff was there, all the kids were there. David went into his room, and he had a can of lighter fluid, and he kind of breathed into it, and he died of a heart attack. And, with a house full of people, could not be prevented. And I thought, beside the horrible pain of losing a kid he really grew up with us. He was 17 and a half, and he had come to us when he was 13. But he was about to be released, and he didn't know where he was going. There was no transitional programs at that time. And I think that really played into his decision of not caring for his own self, because he didn't want to leave us, and he had to leave us because of a court mandate. And that played very much into our idea that we have to do something beyond for those kids that have absolutely nowhere to go and that have grown up in the system with no family, and we are their only family. I thought for sure we would be shut down. For sure we thought we would be shut down. And it was, again, miraculous. Mary Hayes was then the head of the DCFS Children's Bureau, and she had become kind of a friend of mine. She knew my soul. I knew her soul. She was a friend of Bob Crigler's. They knew that sometimes we made mistakes, but that we really tried hard, and we had the kids and the family's interests at heart. And she came and she said, she came to give me her condolences and to say, these things happen, DCFS is going to help you. And they did. DCFS helped us. Licensing, launch, and investigation, but we had the support of DCFS, and it was, you don't know what it meant to us. You were there then, right, Wendy? It was hard.
So I don't know how many people are aware of this, but Eve is the second longest serving executive director in our field in the state of California.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Who's the first?
She is second only to Brother John over at Rancho San Antonio.
Is that so?
And
who inspired me, by the way.
Yes, and
yeah.
he speaks very fondly of you. But you are the longest serving founder in our industry.
I did not know that.
So with that knowledge, what do you see coming in child welfare and behavioral health?
I think that we need to be very, very, very political, much more than we are. That we need to have a stronger presence in Sacramento than we do. I think that I don't necessarily like it, but it's something that is a reality, and we need to invest a lot of money in order to be heard. And I think that if we don't do that, I think the nonprofit sector can be challenged by many for-profit outfits that get interested in our work and believe that they can make money with our kinds of programs. I believe that Penny Lane must develop an endowment that, we must attract people with some money to guarantee. I'm not talking to guarantee our existence for the next 5 or 10 years, but like I was jokingly saying the other day, beyond your lifetime and Rosanna's lifetime and many others' lifetime, for Penny Lane to really last a long, long, long time, we need to develop a very strong endowment. We need to work on that.
And then lastly, and I'd love to hear from Bob Crigler, who, as you say, Penny Lane wouldn't be here without Bob either. I mean,
absolutely not.
When no one would place kids, here came Dr. Crigler, bringing a slew of kids that kept the doors open, and then working at Penny Lane for pennies, and then serving on our board for
Until
close
today.
to and still today, and as the president of the board. What is the legacy of you, Ive? What do you see as the legacy that that Penny Lane will leave? Once Rosanna and I pass away. I mean, what do you see? What do you want to leave?
I think my legacy is Penny Lane. My legacy is a program, and if I'm really as good as some people say I can be, I want you to continue, the work in a manner that, that we have been talking about, connecting with people, really, really being there for the most vulnerable people in our society, working in their behalf, not taking no for an answer. When people say don't do it, cannot do it, go forward and do it, as long as it's part of your vision, as long as you're doing it for the good of the people that you serve. I would like you to continue that, if you would.
And Bob, I would ask you, what do you think Ive's legacy will be?
Say it again.
What do you think Ive's legacy will be?
First off, I'd say her legacy is the fact that several thousand children have been served by Penny Lane, and many, many of them have shown themselves to be very, very successful. Her legacy will be that she was a trailblazer in the arena, partly because the powerful existing institutions didn't think that a rookie could come in and do
A rookie
anything.
Puerto Rican woman.
And I think perhaps her strongest legacy is her, let me say it like this. I want to go back to the David Alloway situation. It was May 9th, 1990. David was on the top level in the group, and he had store pass privileges. And he had heard from a kid who had been transferred from Optimus Home to Penny Lane. He had been told about butane fuel given a different high. So he went on his store pass at 4:21, and at 4:26 he was dead. Now, Mario Diabaldillo called me at home. I had just pulled into the garage. Sheila brought me some underwear and my kit, and I drove right back over to the house. Now, her legacy is, I cannot describe for you. There's nothing that I could say. I don't think there's any words that could bring it together anyway, just how devastated Ive was. Then we got cleared by licensing, the person from licensing, by probation, by children's DCFS. In May, in October, a person in licensing sent somebody back and said, change your statement about this. To see the anguish that she went through, and how devastating this was for her, if you had seen that, then you would know that her legacy is having given her heart, body, and soul to these children and to Penny Lane Centers.
Very nice. Thank you.
On behalf of the staff and the children and the families of Penny Lane, thank you for the legacy of giving us the inspiration, giving us the strength and the desire to be like you and be in the field for many years.